Interacting with people has always been one of the hardest things for me. How I want to interact with another human is just so hard to lay my finger on or develop one singular philosophy about, and I've run my brain into so many different spirals trying to figure out what's going to work best for me. Sometimes the difficulty comes from a very self-righteous place of like, well, look at all these people around me doing something in life that I would not personally do. Let me judge them for it. And then on the other hand, sometimes it's a very self-loathing place of, man, it just seems like everybody was just born given this sort of universal wisdom that I was just left out of. How can I attain some of that, universal know-how that everybody else seems to have? Now, those are two extremes that obviously aren't based in a lot of truth, but the question is, how exactly do we find a way of thinking about our relationships with other people that's fulfilling for us? And this became a lot easier for me when I read about a Korean concept called Cheong. It's spelled Jeong. Now, I'm not here to speak to Cheong. I'm not part of Korean culture. And even people who are say, man, how do you even begin to summarize it? It's just such a beyond words kind of concept. So I'm not here to talk about that exactly. It's just listening to it. It inspired me into my own view that I'm trying to take toward people. And that view is, any experience that I share with another is sacred and binds us. Any experience, without exception, regardless of my enjoyment of that experience with this person, the depth of it, how long it lasted, without exception, I want to just view any experience that I get to share with somebody as being sacred, and realize the bond that it creates with us for the rest of my days. Now that is very extreme, even and especially for me, as evidenced by the fact that, hey, it's only something I've recently come up with, and immediately my brain fires off a bunch of questions of, well, but what about? Very difficult questions. And the first obvious question is, what about experiences in which someone hurts me? Are those experiences still sacred to me? Well, though, they are very painful, and some from the past are still to this day affecting my ability to just enjoy the present as it is today. Yes, I still want to view those experiences as sacred. Even if I don't love the person for hurting me so much, I can be grateful for the experience because it helped reinforce how I'm going to allow other people to treat me. I feel that I have fairly healthy boundaries that I set with people these days, and that's only because of experiences I've had in the past of not having such healthy boundaries and allowing people to cross even the boundaries that I did set. It's all culminated in me creating this strong sense of self. And so yes, I can view that as sacred in a way. And the next question, maybe the more critical one, what about experiences in which I hurt someone? I mean, heck, isn't it even narcissistic for me to say, hey, it's sacred, this experience where I really hurt someone badly? In some ways, that experience is still sacred for me. Because similarly, it helped define how I want to treat people. It helped me realize the effect that I can have on people, and more realize that I want it to be a positive one. And I couldn't have realized ways in which that could be compromised without compromising it in some ways. It also helps me to not demonize those people that hurt me so much, because I can see just the seed of similarity in the way that I acted with somebody else to how somebody acted with me. Now, let me be clear, I am not giving advice or saying that anybody else should or is just supposed to feel this way, and I am not a gleaming example of this either. You know, that reframing is taking conscious effort on my part. All the time. All the time. And there are some people that I think of, either that are present with me today or that I'm thinking of in the past. This interaction, I'm like, I don't know that I'm quite there yet. You know, I kind of need to take a step back because it doesn't do me any good to sort of brute force this faux positivity. I'm just saying it's a general trend that I want to follow. When in doubt about an experience I shared with somebody else, err on the side of viewing it as sacred. Now, the obvious reward from that is that positive experiences, even just mildly positive ones, just start to light up my entire life. You know, a pleasant experience I have with a barista serving me a bagel and a drink. I can really, really appreciate that more. I can really see how nice it is and how not guaranteed it is that I get a positive interaction with anybody. And I've had tons of positive interactions with people throughout my life. Countless. I've even had positive interactions with people who our relationship was not, as a whole, positive. It takes effort, but there's such a big reward in how I start viewing people. You know, and part of improving myself is learning to love and accept everything as it is. And it's a bit of a spiritual high horse I've gotten onto in the past, of looking at people around me and judging them, being like, man, why couldn't they just be all spiritual like me and just accept everything as it is, without realizing the obvious hypocrisy that is me not accepting them as they are. Am I just supposed to pretend that people are separate from everything, in that everything that I'm trying to accept as it is? People are part of the great way, the great unfolding of this life that we have. And just like everything else in our life, we get to choose how we're going to think about them. Yeah, it's just, I can't adopt this philosophy that I'm doing things right just by virtue of being me and everybody else is doing things wrong just because they're not me. And so yeah, just people at large, I gradually have a more positive view of. Now, one perceived downside is that losses of connections can start to hurt more when you start seeing them all as sacred. Through whatever way they were lost, either growing apart, you know, loss of them from this world completely, you know. Yeah, it starts to hurt more, and it starts to make me look back at times that I had with people and be like, man, if I could have only appreciated that individual day, you know, those individual hours and minutes. And that wouldn't be so much of a problem if I was keeping an old, cynical, pessimistic view toward people. So in some ways, making everything sacred creates more emotional risk. But then, you do come to realize that even grief can be sacred. Because it really does show that something must have meant a lot to you at one time for you to be grieving the loss of it, something or someone. And it does prompt me to value the connections that I have today more. You know, it's a mantra I've been repeating throughout my adulthood because it's become so much more clear to me every single year. You have your time with people, and then you don't. And the beautiful, glowing, forward-thinking part of all that is that, hey, I had all these connections in the past that meant a lot to me, that some of them I don't have anymore. But I have some new ones since. When I lose a connection, there's almost always the seed of a new one, ready to be nourished. Hypothetically, there are currently at least 8 billion sacred opportunities out there. And I just want to make sure that I cherish the ones that I already have today and live my life as my truest self. And I really do think that my truest self is the one that sees all these interactions with people as sacred. Beyond ego, beyond anything else, I love everything just for being. And everyone.